Hi folks, it's Claude. I'm in the tiny kitchen again, and this time around we're going to talk stuffing. Now, in this house, stuffing is a very popular side, and I'm sure it is in your home too. So I'm going to show you how to make your basic sausage stuffing. Okay, so the first thing you're going to need for sausage stuffing is sausage. Now, this recipe makes kind of a lot. Like, I could put this into an 18-pound bird and still have enough to put into a pan somewhere else, because the stuffing is just so popular in my family. So what I've got going on in my big cast iron wok is 2 pounds of your basic chub of pork sausage. Okay, the chub of those little plastic tubes that they sell in the supermarket, and they usually come in the 1 pound packets. And you're going to want to use a big pan for this, and you'll see why in a little bit. But the bottom line is, put the sausage in, start to break it up with your spatula or whatever have you. All right. You don't want it to be like all the way down to little bits of sausage dust, but you do want to break it up pretty well. And I find that the best way to do this is to break it up a little bit, let it cook, break it up a little more, let it cook some more, just kind of cycling around a few times. And I like to use the cast iron because cast iron is just such a righteous conductor of heat, and once the cast iron is well seasoned, it's practically a non-stick surface. You can clean it out pretty much with hot water and a brush and be done with it. All right, so we got our sausage cooking. Baked it up a little bit more. Groovy. The other part of our stuffing, of course, is going to be bread. And yeah, you can go into the supermarket and buy those little dried up bread cubes and open up the bag and throw it in. But you know what? Then I reserve the right to laugh at you. Okay. One of the things that makes stuffing especially good is textures. I like to mix up the textures. And in this case, I've got lots of different breads going on here. Not as many as usual, but I've got a pretty good mix here. So I've got some multigrain, which I allowed to go stale, so it's pretty stiff stuff. All right. This is your basic Martin's potato bread. And I've also got some cornbread in here that I made last night, and I cut up into cubes. Sometimes, if I have the opportunity, I'll cut up a bagel, throw that in. Okay. Cutting up the bread, no big deal. You got a nice bread knife, it's a snap. And what you're going to want is about roughly 9 cups of bread altogether. All right, I'm going to do just a little bit more of the potato bread here, so I'm not quite where I want to be. Remember, I mean, this bowl is big and it's nearly full, but it's also going to lose some volume later on, and you'll see why. So let me do a few more slices of bread. Up, check my sausage. Yeah, it's getting there. And you're looking for a couple of things here with the sausage. The first thing is you want it cooked, okay? Because killing your guests is generally frowned upon in American society. So you want the sausage to be cooked through. You also don't want it to cook too fast, because the idea here is that you want to render out a bunch of that fat and get that imparted into the bread. Remember, fat equals flavor. That's how I got the women. Okay. Toast that up a little bit more. And we cut up this here bread. And the other thing you're going to need for your stuffing, of course, are a few other flavors and textures and such. So, that's pretty good. We're also going to use this here, and this is my Pampered Chef 2 quart or 2 liter, depending on which side of this thing you're looking at. 8 cups. okay, mixing bowl, but it also comes with this remarkably handy lid so that I could do a little bit of advanced prep. And what you see there is I've got some celery on the bottom, some basic yellow onion on top, and there is about 3 cups each in here. All right. I want to do this in advance because it's kind of tedious to watch me do it, but I'm going to dig down a little bit and show you just how small I'm cutting it. And one of the things I like to do with the celery is I like to get the leafiest celery I can find, because the leaves tend to, I don't know, they just do something for it. I don't know. But anyway, so you want everything cut up pretty small. Okay, see that onion just breaking up into little bits there. And we're going to add that in just a couple minutes. We come back over here. This sausage is looking pretty good. All right. That's just going to need another couple minutes, not very long at all. But I'm also going to get in a bowl. Okay, that's too big. I'm going to use that to put my sausage aside for a few minutes. All right. So I'm going to let the sausage finish cooking, and I will come back to you in just a minute. Okay, folks, so the sausage is just about cooked, and I've been removing it with a slotted spoon so that the grease gets left behind. And I'm just going to give you a quick peek in here so you can see that stuff is, there we go. Still got some sizzling going on, still got some bubbling going on. That's because there's just some water down there, and the water is just boiling off. No big deal, right? Okay, so sausage is out for a minute. Move it over there. One back for the bowl. Piece for the dog down there. And to this sausage grease, I am going to add a stick of butter. What you say, an entire stick? Yes, okay? What I say before, fat makes flavor, so you got a little bit of that. But the other thing is, we're about to cook 6 cups of onion and celery. So we're gonna need a lot of butter and grease. All right, bust this up so it melts a little bit faster. This butter is almost straight out of the fridge, so it's not melting very quickly. And again, the butter is also going to release some water that's going to have to boil off. And, well, frankly, that's just the way it's going to go for the rest of the frying process, because you know what? The butter's going to give up some water, and then we're going to throw this in, and then the onion and the celery are going to give up some water. So you've got to wait for all that stuff to evaporate for everything to actually cook nicely. But our butter is just about ready. It's looking good. So in goes our onion and celery. And this butter is just barely melted, so it's not going to be all sizzly and whatever else, and that's okay. Stir it around to make sure it all gets coated up. All right, so my onions and my celery are pretty well mixed at this point. They're starting to simmer a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I am going to stop recording for a moment. I'm going to let them do their thing, and then we'll come back and I'll show you what's happening. All right, so we've been going about 14-15 minutes here, and it's taking that long because there's just so much. All right, but my onions and my celery are just about cooked. In fact, some of my onions are starting to brown a little bit. I don't want them to really do too much of that. So I'm going to push because I got the wok, I'm going to push some of my vegetables up the sides of the wok. And the beauty thing about stuffing is that it's very versatile stuff. You can put in whatever you want. So if you want to put in some water chestnuts, that's nice. You can either dice them or get the sliced ones. You could put in pretty much anything. It's just some people like to put fruit, apples, that sort of thing, nuts, walnuts, chestnuts. It's all good. It is just all good. All right, I'm gonna shut that off, and I'm gonna take this guy off the heat. Whew, that end's hot. That handle's pretty cold. This end's pretty hot. Move this off the heat. But as I said, this thing stays pretty hot for a long time. So it's not necessarily going to slow the cooking process right away, but it does cool down in fairly short order. All right. So what I've got is I'm going to take some of my bread, and rest assured I did wash my hands pretty thoroughly before I restarted the video. Okay. Take some of this bread and throw it right in there. Okay. You want the bread to start soaking up all that liquid that's in there. Take a couple of good handfuls and just stir it through. Ah, very good. Until you see that the liquid at the bottom of the pan is pretty much gone. And that's the other reason you want the mix of the fresh bread and the stale bread, is because the stale stuff needs to get soft and the fresh stuff will pick up pretty quickly. It's looking pretty good. All right, but what to do? We got all this bread. It's okay, we're gonna mix them all back together. Now we can start moving this stuff into the big bowl. Now that we know we've got all our butter and our sausage grease and what a little bit of water is left behind, and this is the point. You might have noticed, by the way, that I haven't put any seasoning in. This is the point where I actually start to season. You could, if you wanted to, put a little bit of salt into the onion and celery while it is cooking up, which will help the onion render out some of the water a little bit faster, but it's not necessary. Get all that stuff out of there. Where's that spoon? Get some help. Let me get a spoon assist here. That right there. That's the worst part of having the cast iron wok. That's kind of annoying sound. What are you going to do? All right. And the other thing that's bad about a cast iron wok is they weigh a freaking ton. They're very heavy. All right. You're out of the way. Put this over here. And in goes the sausage. And of course, the sausage, having been sitting there, some liquid had actually collected at the bottom of that pan. So that's got to get mixed in. Now this stuff, look at all that. This stuff is still pretty hot, because after all, it just came out of a frying pan. So you're going to stir as much as you can using your big spoon or your spatula or whatever your preferred mixing instrument is. It's kind of funny now, when I toss my pasta with the sauce, I go back to the tongs, but this is not a job for tongs. You'll you'll see, because you've got the mixture of the stale bread and the fresh bread, some of the bread is starting to lose a little bit of definition, while some other parts of it are not. Okay, we're getting pretty well mixed there. So now is the time for me to add a little salt. Don't get too crazy with this. And a little bit of fresh ground pepper. Get yourself a good pepper mill. You get one you like, you'll never let it go. And you reach into your cabinet, pull out my cleverly disguised Bill seasoning. Here it is on the wrong shelf. And just give that a liberal shake. We're looking at maybe 3/4 of a teaspoon to a teaspoon, something like that. And start stirring that through. Now this might actually be a little bit too dry still, and that's okay. Sometimes that's going to happen. So what you're going to do is just add a little chicken broth if you need to. I think that is something that I'm going to want to do. And the other thing you can do to really mix this thoroughly, once it's cool enough, get in there with your hands, mush it just a little bit. Not a lot, because you don't want all the bread to turn into mush, but again, some of it, sure, why not? Okay? That's really about it for stuffing. You take it, you put it into the cavity of the bird. Remember, don't pack it in there, okay? Because it's going to swell up as it cooks, all right? And you are going to want the stuffing to get to about 150-ish degrees, 160. If you stick a thermometer into the meat, 165, all right? We don't want anybody dying here. If you put anything else into there, oysters, some people do that. Andouille sausage, some people love to do that. My brother did that once. Your best bet, cook it first, okay? And then put it in like I did here with the sausage. You could cook it inside the bird, but because it's not going to get to the same temperature as the meat, unless you want to overcook the meat, not a good idea. So cook all your stuff first before you put it into the bird. And as I mentioned, you put some into the cavity and then some on that other end where the neck was. All right, put a little bit in there, helps the whole thing maintain definition. That's the story of stuffing. All right, I hope you had fun with this one, and I'll see you again soon.